You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
It's that time of the week. It's episode 70 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dan Roberts. With me is blogger, writer, author, television personality, my co-star in podcast fandom, my famous, I can't talk today, my famous co-star, dog mom, and mouse assassin, Jessica Szilagyi.
I am thankful to be here this week after the mouse incident. I'm thankful to be alive, actually.
You know what? I would make fun of you for it, and I was last night. I assure you, I was. But I hate vermin. Like, I'd rather have 100 snakes than one mouse. I hate vermin. They're disgusting. Like a bug, I'll just smash and kill. Yeah, mice are just.
Yeah, this is the first one I've had since I've lived down here in almost 4 years, so I feel pretty lucky. And I've come a long way with bugs. I mean, I'm terrified of bugs, but I can handle them no matter the size. Like, I'll just handle it. But there was something going on in my hallway last week, and the dogs kept like peeking around the corner but wouldn't go down the hall because they heard something rummaging around, and I'd get up, but every time I got up the noise would go away. So finally I was standing in the hall in the dark with my phone flashlight on, and sure enough, out comes a mouse between the washer and dryer. And I kid you not, I mean, I live fairly secluded from people, and I know the closest neighbors heard me screaming. I thought I was gonna pass out. Like, I was seeing stars. That's how loud and overwhelmed by my screams I was. And of course it took off, and I took off, and I was just standing on my couch in the living room thinking, what the heck am I going to do?
I was talking to a listener, a friend of mine, and I told her about it. She goes, I've never laughed so hard as listening to Jessica describe the first palmetto bug she saw and try to stab at it with a shower curtain rod.
Yes, which I did do, by the way. Didn't just try. I successfully killed the bug with the shower curtain that I ripped off the wall with the pole. But I mean, a mouse is totally different because, like, a bug, it can be disgusting, but it's just a bug that you could probably step on it in most cases. Like, you could smash it with a book or whatever, a shower rod and curtain. I mean, not a mouse. I was up all night, didn't go to bed till 5:30. Then got up, like, called the exterminating company, went and got traps and everything. And the only solution is to catch them. Unless you just, like, because you can't, in a farmhouse, you can't, like, block them out forever, apparently. So I caught one, and then I was faced with, okay, now what? Like, it's on the trap, now what? Because I wasn't going to get close enough. And it was alive still because it's just like a sticky thing.
Glue trap.
It was screaming. I was screaming. And I had, like, fully prepared the house for another night because everyone said that it takes like 24 to 48 hours to catch them. But this came in a matter of hours. But I had bought a baby gate and woven the baby gate with steel wool to put in front of my bedroom because they won't come through steel wool. And I was like, this thing is not coming into, like, my sacred area where I keep my clothes and my purses and I rest my head. Like, I will not let this mouse take over. But anyway, I had all that set up, and this thing ends up on the sticky pad. So I went and got 2 5-foot-long pieces of PVC piping from my shed and picked it up with literally a 5-foot pole and carried it out to the field and just left it. I'm like, whatever.
Poor Mr. Jangles.
He's dead now. He's meant to be with his Lord and Savior, but...
How do you know he's dead?
I mean, he's stuck. I would imagine by nightfall he was gone because he was stuck on a pad and there's animals out there.
So there's a poor coyote running around with half a mouse in his mouth and a sticky pad on his nose.
Yeah, what I did was not humane, nor was it like EPA approved, but this was one of those things. I mean, I'm not even pro death penalty, but I was prepared to do whatever I had to do.
Yeah, I found one after clearing some brush around the house and had the garage doors open. And I saw one in the basement, and I was prepared to shoot it.
Yeah.
And then I realized that that's probably not the smartest idea.
No, that did cross my mind though at one point, like initially last night. I mean, I think that's your instinct because, like, I'll just take it out. But
because I want it dead.
Yes.
It's
I walked around in my rain boots all night because I did not want to risk it touching my toes in flip-flops or anything.
I want him dead, his family dead, his house burned to the ground.
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, my city dogs are no help at all. Like, I love them. They are perfect. I would do anything for them. But they literally sat in the corner because, and I know they were picking up on me screaming, but Shady was under the coffee table and Stella had her back against the wall behind a chair. Like, no help at all for the entire evening.
No help at all.
No help at all. So, I said,
even a well-fed cat's probably not going to put that much of an effort in.
No, and I have a cat that lives under my house, but apparently he's off this week because he's not doing his job.
You have a cat who lives under your house.
Yes, I'm deathly allergic, so I can't let a cat in the house. But there's a cat that's lived under there since I moved in, and I just leave water for him, and he is a fat cat. I don't know what he eats, apparently mice, but he lives under there, and we don't really talk, and I just leave him water.
Where's your ductwork?
Under the house.
Not a great combination.
No, but he's never been a problem.
Well, I hate that I missed last week. That was a good episode. Good job. I certainly would have enjoyed having some conversation with someone who was opposing to some of my views and agreeing on some others and finding common ground that we all can do when you have polite conversation with people who oppose your views instead of running to your corner and getting into your echo chamber. The night we were supposed to record, my brother passed unexpectedly. And I probably wouldn't have been much fun, but I'm going to power through this hour and focus and be in the moment and focus on the show and try to give the listeners the mediocrity they've come to expect from me.
I'm sure they were praying for your return after me having to host last week. So
no, it was good. It was a good job.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
And it was and you had very little notice.
Well, that's when we work the best, I think, under pressure, when you have no choice but to perform for the people. Isn't that what you do every week?
Perform. Yeah, I'm the new Matt Lowe. I'm reading the outline as we're getting on our call.
Oh gosh. But I'm very sorry about your brother, and I'm just glad you're back. So.
Well, thank you. Getting into the show. Nonprofits claim that Americans donated less to charity last year because of the new tax law. The reforms included expanded standard deduction, but excluded millions of taxpayers from claiming a tax break for donating to charity. For most, it was more advantageous to file using the lump sum rather than itemizing.
So, I mean, there's no doubt that there were changes made, and that it is not like people aren't. I think there was an unintended, or maybe they knew, but it was just a trade-off of what this might do to tax deductions, because there are plenty of people who do donate for the deductions. But I did find it interesting because the report came out by Giving USA, which I'd never heard of them before, but they offer these types of reports every year, and all kinds of giving related, as you can imagine, statistics. And their report is Giving USA 2019. Americans gave $427.71 billion to charity in 2018 amid a complex year for charitable giving. Which, from an organizational standpoint, I feel like is very fair. Like, it was a complex year. Whenever you change the tax code, there's confusion and people, who are upset or give less or don't know what to expect or all of those things. But obviously, I found the articles about this before I found the report. And a lot of the articles by Yahoo or CNN and all this, and even Fox News, didn't link to the original report, yet they blamed Trump's tax laws. Like, the headline of the article that we read was, Trump's tax law made Americans less charitable, nonprofits say. Well, if you read the report, that's not what the nonprofits said. They just said that giving was down, corporate giving was up, individual giving was down, and it still resulted in a net decline. But they didn't say that yes, the changes in the tax law are results of this, but just the tone of it all is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it, because the word charitable is what gets me. Like, if you're donating to be charitable, you're not doing it for tax reasons. I know that that's being very specific and almost nitpicky, but
it's not nitpicky at all.
Trump didn't make anybody have I guess that he didn't make them be less compassionate or want to help others more simply because they're keeping more of their money. Like, that's not what happened.
Well, and let me give a small insight into some of it. People would go take crap to Goodwill. And Goodwill is not one of my favorite charities. I don't think they're a charity at all. But they are a 501(c)(3). You can take, if you're moving, you take whatever you've got, you take it over to Goodwill, and they give you a piece of paper that you fill out and decide how much your crap is worth. I've gone to Goodwill before, mostly because it's closer than the dump.
Sure.
So you can write whatever you want to on it. Well, when we went to this short form, which unfortunately I can't use, there's no need to do that. There's no reason to put a bunch of fake deductions in there. So I think the numbers are maybe skewed in that area. And I'm not going to say that entire 1% or whatever it is that are down 3.5% is due to Goodwill by itself. But I think fewer people feel the need to file those deductions or file those donations. We also are inundated by GoFundMes and things like that, where they're not true charities, where people feel they're being charitable by giving to Little Susie's Cancer Fund, but it's not truly a 501(c), so it wouldn't be tracked in this. So this is a societal evolution.
Absolutely. That's a really good point.
To crowdfunding and things like that. Of all the things that Trump's done, and trust me, I'd like to go 10 rounds to some about his opinions on guns. But increasing the standard deduction and going to a short form where you don't have to buy software, you don't have to go to a CPA to do basic taxes. The average American doesn't have to go and fill out 15 pages of something, I think was overall a good thing. I would like to see all taxation go away, but, I'm crazy.
Right.
So I agree with you. I think this was a very pointed article. It's going to be used as a political fodder, or maybe that's why it was designed to be used as political fodder in the upcoming election, saying, look what the Trump economy has done has made people more selfish. And I see exactly the opposite. I see people giving $2 and $3 and $4 on these GoFundMes when they see a story that really speaks to them, and they say, what can I do? Let me give $1. Let me give $2. And I think we're seeing more generous people that aren't looking for credit. So
that's probably really a very fair point. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I would say that almost, I mean, I don't like using the word all, but I know a lot of people who give directly to a person, or even at church, who donate like for a specific person going through something. Or, I mean, charity, that's why I guess why my contention is so with the word charity in all of this, making Americans less charitable, which wasn't just on Yahoo. I mean, it was across the board. Bloomberg, CNN, USA Today, all of them had the same tone about Americans being less charitable because of Trump's tax law. And I just feel like it was a poor definition of what it means to be charitable. And the reality is, regardless of what numbers say, people are more giving when the economy is doing better and they don't have to pay as much as taxes. When people have more to take home, they give more. Like, most people just help others more because they can.
Yeah, I'd love to see a study on average tip in restaurants going up or down, or is it static? I'd like to see. Look, these stories come out and the headline grabs you. It puts out a narrative. It puts out something that it's going to grab both sides. It's going to grab us that are like, what the hell does that mean? It's going to grab the other side who are already, it speaks to them, and it's going to get clicks, and it does. But I think it really does. I think it insults the average American, who I've seen do great things. I mean, people are basically good. Whether it's putting money in the boot when they see the firefighters, when it's giving to the Shriners. And this is me thinking out loud. Another reason I think you see some of these charities showing a downtick are the boots, are the guys at the red lights. Who the hell has cash anymore?
Right.
So the bell ringers at Christmas, that no one is coming out of the grocery store with a couple ones anymore, because you just don't. You do everything with a swipe. So to assign this to blame Trump is ridiculous. I mean, it feeds their narrative, and I don't blame that. This would be a Fox News story if Obama was still president, saying under the Obama economy, people are less charitable. It just depends on which side is writing the story.
Right, but I guess, and then, like I said, so many of them didn't even include, like, you had to go looking for the report. They mentioned it, but there's links to all other kinds of stuff, but no link to the actual report, which I just think did an injustice to what it actually said. So I'm glad that we were able to clarify that for all of our listeners.
You ready to go to hell?
We could, just for a visit, I guess.
You can get married in hell.
I heard.
So there is a town, Hell, Michigan. It's about 60 miles outside of Detroit. Sounds like a great place to get married. I mean, it's appropriate. You can become mayor for a day for a certain amount of money, and the guy who became mayor for a day renamed it Gay Hell. YouTuber Elijah Daniel, 25, is making waves on social media this week after announcing he's buying the small American town of Hell and renaming it for Pride Month. Okay, Pride Month celebrates the global LGBTQYXZ. They've got too many letters now. Community with a series of events and parades held in June. This guy's kind of a provocateur anyway, and I say that in total respect for provocateurs.
Right.
Because there's nothing I like more than a good troll, Matt Lowe.
So, my only problem with this guy is that his trolling was a little bit confusing. Like, it's not... And he says that his purpose is to have clickbait, and he wants to engage people by drawing them in for outrageousness, and then he explains the policy behind it, which, I can respect that. Like, as long as... in a world where there's clickbait everywhere, at least on the other side of the clickbait, he's actually trying to explain something instead of being dishonest. So for those purposes, I get it. But, I mean, dang. Gay hell.
You know,
And doesn't... he doesn't live there, right?
No.
So...
He is a Michigander.
Right.
By birth, but I don't think he actually lives there.
It's kind of a jerk move to do that to a town, even if it's just for a day. I don't know.
Well,
interesting.
Michigan sucks, particularly Detroit. I mean, you could buy a city block for $1. I'm married a Michigander.
You're from Broward County, so I mean,
I know
Connie's still winning.
It's the perfect marriage of just snow trash and sand trash together.
Oh my god!
But yeah, he's making this big political thing. I don't even have a problem with Gay Pride Month. I don't care. If this helps him get his YouTube channel out there to make some money and get some clicks, hey, good for you. It's a good investment. I really think that this should go ahead and rename Statesboro Nat Hell.
I mean, that would be accurate.
It would. I've heard it before, but I was reintroduced to the term the Nat line.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay north of Macon, you don't have the gnats.
That is correct.
Yeah, that'd be just fine with me. But look, if this raises money and essentially taxes somebody to be the mayor for the day or sell the town for the day, cool idea. If Dallas wants to do that and take some of the onerous off the taxpayers, the property owners in Paulding County or Dallas, hey, I'm all for it.
We were talking about the LGBTQ protest, but did we mention that it is because he's protesting Trump's ban on flying the rainbow flag at embassies? Did we talk about that?
No, we have not.
Okay, so that's obviously like one of the big pillars of his gay hell campaign.
Thanks for pointing out my shortcomings as a host.
Well, no, I'm going somewhere with this, so I just wanted to touch on it. But I learned that as I hosted last week, so I'm just bringing the things that I learned from substituting your position last week. But basically, like I said, he's upset that Trump won't let the rainbow flag fly at the embassies. And I think they said that he initially wanted to make it so... What was it? That they had to
only
fly...
The
only
XYQ flag or whatever can fly at in the city until he realizes it's against Michigan law to ban the American flag.
Right. And I'm like it's just, if you're going to be this kind of person who's this vocal, you got to be a little bit more, you got to do a little more research on the front end, because people are going to mention things like this, and it's not a huge deal. Like, I'm glad that he didn't actually do it, but the fact that he thought that banning something, even for a day, or doing, that just, it doesn't come off well.
How can you have freedom if you don't ban something?
True.
Look, I don't care if the embassies fly the flag. I don't think it's their place. I don't think it's a good idea. Unless you're going to troll like Pakistan, or you're going to troll some of these countries that have horrible human rights records when it comes to gay individuals. If you're trolling, that's fine. I don't care if they fly it or if they don't. That's the prerogative of the executive. I mean, that's literally his job is to control that branch. He does a lot of stuff that's outside of his job, but that, as far as how the embassies conduct business, that's within the purview of the executive branch. I just don't care, and none of the gay folks that I know care. I can't remember what they call it. I think they call me gay friendly. Is that because I'm a gay friendly breeder? I just don't care. People are people. And the people that I hang out with aren't people who get offended by a flag flying or one not flying. We have more important things to do, like, go to work and feed our families.
I hear you. I'm with you. It was an interesting tactic, though. And I love the city's website, go to hell, Michigan.com.
Oh,
Get
yes.
Married in Hell. There's the Hellhole Diner. Like, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Props to them. Good work.
Give us that address again.
Go to hellmi.com.
And we will share it when
Yes.
this airs. Oh, yeah, it's great. Never have I wanted to go to Michigan. Like, this would be pretty cool. Go to the Hellhole Inn or Hellhole Diner. Yeah.
I love it.
This I don't love. Georgia Department of Public Health is going after a charity that feeds hungry kids for using uncertified kitchens.
This is a crying shame.
Holy, what the hell is wrong with our government?
So this is Must Ministries, which I feel like, especially in the metro area, people have heard of Must Ministries. They've been helping with the summer lunch program for 25 years almost, I think. Maybe this was their 24th year. I don't know, but a very long time. And this is the first time they've been doing the same thing pretty much the entire time. And this is the first time that the government is getting in the way of it. And what they're doing is what a lot of the summer lunch programs do is, depending on the geographical area, they either go to different locations or they have the kids come there to pick up the food. And they're not sitting in there cooking. Like, it's bagged lunches, boxed lunches, sandwiches to go, things like that. So they're not even, people make them at home and donate the food, or groups make them at church kitchens and bring the food to give to the kids for the summer lunch program, and they get reimbursed from the federal government that's actually administering this. Like, if I'm making 10 sandwiches in my kitchen, nobody's telling me that I can't give those out to people because I haven't had a health inspection. It's ridiculous.
Let me give you the numbers here. The group says it provided 7,600 children with 260,000 lunches last year, thanks to churches, businesses, and families who volunteer their time and home kitchens to make sandwiches.
It's outrageous.
Now, as far as the federal reimbursement, not huge on that, but this is what we harp on every day. Well, who would feed the children if it weren't for the government? Charity. People in their kitchens. People who want to show their kids how to be good citizens and say, well, let's help the less fortunate. Every morning we're going to wake up and make 10 sandwiches and take it and drop it off. Whatever it is, there is not anything more pure than feeding a child that's hungry. And the fact that that's a charity doing it, which is the way I push people. So, who will feed the poor? Charities. And then for government to step in and say, no, you can't do that. They must go to a school facility where we have to pay cafeteria workers 12 months a year so we can feed the children that go hungry.
I pity the person who works at the Georgia Department of Public Health who actually went to this place to try to enforce these rules and is cracking down on this. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of us that aren't a fan of the summer lunch program, not a fan of the school lunch program. Like, it's a mess. It's a socialistic mess, but it is a reality. And we have so many counties around this state. I mean, some of these kids in my community and communities that I work in, they get their breakfast and their lunch, or they'll get lunch and dinner from these programs. And that's all the food they have in the summer. So you have a government that is telling us we have to be taxed so that we can pay for these children to have their food, and then someone steps up to do it and you say, sorry, we're going to not let you do that.
Of course, yeah, these are the same kids that qualify for food stamps and
Right.
everything else. The
food from these things that these ministries and these churches and these private organizations put together is a heck of a lot less expensive than the lunch programs the government is administering. I mean, that's just a reality. Like, especially when you're talking about someone making sandwiches in a kitchen and then preparing them for distribution. Again, I understand that it's a government-backed thing, but if these parents of these kids were so worried about the quality of the food they were getting, they would be asking questions. No one's even gotten sick. Like,
right. Well, it's a solution looking for a problem. Look, if these parents were so concerned, they wouldn't be buying cigarettes and be putting food on the table. But yeah, what's it cost to make a sandwich? 60 cents? Bologna, cheese. And to your point, it is way more efficient when you don't get government involved in doing this stuff. The kids are happy, their bellies are full. The parents are happy because the kids are being fed. The churches and the individuals feel good about what they're doing. They're giving back in a meaningful way, not having some payroll deduction going to the United Way, but actually seeing the face of a child when you hand him food, and government just can't stand that.
It's disappointing, and these are the types of things that drag out so long that, I mean, in the scheme of life, summer is short, and this is dragging out, and now they're all scrambling. 22 million children qualify for free and reduced lunch in school. Less than 4 million students benefit from the summer food service program. I mean, and out of all the things, like we talk about the picking your battles and the hills to die on. You know, we can't fight every government thing. Like, I can't, unless there was a problem, unless they were serving kids bad food, this is not something that I would ever speak up against or complain about.
And, we had a similar problem in Dallas where a ministry was trying to open up a pantry. Or they're preparing food for the homeless. And the city has done everything possible to keep them from opening. So much so that they wanted them to have a handicap ramp on a 2-inch lip coming from the parking lot. And tell them that they're trying to keep them from opening because they don't want the poor people around. The only complaints I've ever heard about Must Ministries is they attract the homeless. Mm-hmm. There's one right across the street from where I buy equipment. I mean, I lock my door when I go inside, but I'm I'm an elitist.
Of course.
Yeah. I can't look. There's nobody that agrees with this. There are R's, D's, and L's that are scrambling right now to put in some legislation that makes it okay to make this okay. I would think this is one thing that the governor could do is direct his health department elsewhere. Until we fix the regs, go look over there. Leave these folks alone. Again, the health department reports to the executive. The executive is Brian Kemp.
Can he do anything by executive order with this kind of stuff, or is that outside of his scope? Can he write an executive order to exempt or direct the community health to exempt these types of organizations?
Exempt, no, but he could direct them to ignore them, I would assume.
Even if it's just with regard to the summer lunch program,
Yeah.
Or short-term stuff, or, not 365.
I hate encouraging executive orders.
Sure.
Because
I just didn't know if he could.
Executive orders are designed to direct departments on how to handle laws, and the last few presidents have decided that executive orders are laws, but he can certainly direct the head of the health department to look elsewhere. Like if you want to have a job on Monday morning, go find somebody else to pick on. So now that I've bashed the governor and the health department, I want to let you know these are our opinions and not necessarily those of All on Georgia. Except everyone agrees that government's the problem. So, follow-up story. Haralson County deputy loses his job over social media posts. This is the third law enforcement officer to lose his job over, I'm going to put air quotes around, ties to white supremacist group in the last year.
All right. So this is kind of complex. Like, I didn't know this before. I did a little Googling before the show, and it talks about how, I guess, there's been a concerted effort to kind of weed out people with overt ties to, especially like neo-Nazi groups, if they're in law enforcement and in the military. I did not know that the FBI was doing that from a perspective of, like, I'm not saying the FBI is like tipping off a group. I'm not like tinfoil hatting any of this, but I didn't know that there was an initiative like that unless it became a problem or there was a need for an investigation. I also always question groups whose sole duty is to go around and find people that they feel have poorly executed their right to free speech or profess their beliefs. Because I'm one of those people that, like, if people show you who they are, like, what more could you ask for? And if this jailer in Haralson County hadn't done anything that on the job that backed up or coincided with the views that he held on Facebook, like, what's the big deal? Do I hold those views? Absolutely not. Would I put some of the stuff he's put on Facebook on my Facebook? Definitely not. But if he's professional on the job and he's had no complaints other than your typical, he was rude to me, he disrespected me, like, we hear that all the time in all of our jails. So if he didn't have any problems on the job, why would he did in his free time on social media?
Well, Brandon Trent East submitted his resignation last month after being doxxed by the left-wing anonymous collective Atlanta Anti-Fascists.
Super creative name, by the way.
Man, it was that or be fired, he said. He had worked in the Bremen jail for about 45 miles. Worked in the Bremen jail about 45 miles west of Atlanta. Sorry, words are tough. The sheriff told me could either terminate me or I'd have to resign. That way my file was sealed or something. I chose to resign. It seemed like the more dignified thing to do since it really wasn't much of a choice anyway.
He's kind of a doofus because his file is definitely not sealed. That's why there's an article about it. But do you agree with this?
Of course not. Look, and I make jokes about trolling and all that stuff. Sometimes people say things online they don't really believe. Sometimes people put an online persona that's not really what they are in person. So many people that I've known, like in the real world and known online, that when someone says so-and-so is such an a-hole, like, you really don't know the guy. He has fun online. These anonymous groups, are doxing people. They want to be anonymous, but they want to expose who everybody else is. And the fact that they don't see the irony there is, I won't say shocking, saddening. It just, go ahead.
They don't see the irony, and where does it stop? I mean, in an age of memes, it's going to come to the point, we've had the discussion about it's going to come to the point where everyone's social media past haunts them when they decide to run for office, because, the generations behind us, like I got Facebook when I was 18 because you had to have a college email address to do it. But now, kids have Snapchat, Instagram, everything starting at like 12 and 13, and that history is out there for forever, coupled with blogs and everything else. At what point is something that, one, I think there should be a distinction between what happens on the job and what happens off the job. Is it directly tied to your job duties? Like, was he talking about people that were in his jail or in the Bremen system or Haralson County system? Was he talking about, something that could be directly tied to his job? I think the answer is no in this case specifically. I don't understand how you can be terminated for something. I know we're an at-will state. It's not that. I don't understand why, as an employer, you would even entertain something like that when it didn't happen on the job and it hasn't impacted the job.
I don't know why, as a elected official, you would allow yourself to be bullied, and I hate that word too, to kowtow to a bunch of anonymous idiots. His job performance, from reports, was fine. He had a horrible job working in a jail. They can't find people to fill these positions. But we're going to fire somebody who's had no real complaints, who does his job every day, because of his association with an association that may associate with somebody who's a white supremacist. And reading the article, that's where it kind of came through, was he's Jessica, what do they call themselves? Norse pagans.
Well, you bring up an interesting point when you're talking about that, because I misspoke, because the sheriff said that being a member of subversive organizations is a policy violation. Okay, I can appreciate that. But then the article goes on to say that, this East and his friend were behind some organized group, but the group just had connections to white supremacists and they were affiliated with some other assembly. Like, he didn't say that they were, nowhere in the article and nowhere in any of this stuff does it say this guy was part of an organized, active white supremacist group. They couldn't even say that. So how do you get to membership when simply, we all probably know someone who's a part of a group that would be offensive or...
Okay, well, okay, who's a Republican? David Duke. Hey, easy, Democrats. You got Paul Byrd. So both those groups have been associated in the past with white supremacists. When you start taking yarn and drawing to tack on a cork board with pictures on it to try to show some sort of connection between a group and a white supremacist, it opens the door to something very scary. And again, the guy did not run KKK of Haralson County. He did not run any direct Norse pagans. And the article tries to tie in, that's a new code word for white supremacist. A guy got banned from Chicago Cubs games for giving the OK sign, saying it was a white supremacist sign, hand signal. The stuff's getting out of hand.
It is. And you're going to end up with people who no one's going to want to work in the public sector. And yes, I would love to see a reduction in government jobs and all these things. But the people that they're going after, we're talking, the 3 of the 4 people, well, let's talk about all 4 of them, because one of them is a teacher. 2 deputies, a jailer, and a teacher in the last year, in Georgia alone, in the metro area. No one's going to want to go into the private sector or the public sector because they're going to be worried that their previous social media is going to be inspected and it's going to cost them a job, and they're going to be not only cost them a job, but be on the front page of the AJC and other news outlets.
Okay, I'm going to be that guy. I hate that guy. I'm going to be that guy. When do they flip it and go after the teachers, the jailers, the cops who were members of Black Lives Matter or Nation of Islam or any other group that has ties to extremism, Weather Underground? When are they going to go after folks, the Black Panthers? And I'm not talking about, obviously I wouldn't want anybody who's part of the Black Panthers being a police officer, but some offshoot, somebody who is associated with some church that is also associated with Farrakhan or also associated with the Black Panthers, and say, oh, well, he's associated with those who are associated, therefore he must be a racist. Fire him.
It's just over the top, and, you know, this, I think it goes well beyond the whole thing. Well, if you don't want this inspector, then don't work for the public sector, don't work for the government. And I'm a huge advocate of that. Like, I think lots of things should be transparent, but you're going after people who are just literally just doing their jobs. They haven't had any issues. I just don't think it's right.
You're also going after the, I don't want to mean the lowest of the low socially. I'm talking about on the food chain. The guy's a jailer.
Right.
He gets poo flung at him. The guy's a jailer.
Well, and I'm not speculating anything about Haralson County or anywhere, but I mean, it's usually the higher ups that are sitting around making sexist and racist jokes, not the, I mean, Well,
it's not even that. It's, he doesn't make policy. He's not in charge of anything besides doing he's not a supervisor or anything else. His job is to make sure that the people on the inside don't get to the outside, to make sure that they escort people to areas for transportation to go to court. Has authority within the jail, obviously, to tell an inmate to sit down and shut up. But he's not running the jail. He's not the sheriff. And obviously, if he's running for public office, if you want to take his social media and put it out there, that's what happens when you run for office. He's just a jailer, man. And the teacher they didn't say, that I've heard anyway, the teacher was just going into the classroom or was handing out, grades based on race. Can't you just go to work and do your job and be and have whatever you want on your Facebook? It's just a job, man. It's silly to me that this is where we are in this area, that being associated with a group will get you fired.
I'm with you.
And it's not their bosses finding it. There's no complaints. I'll be one thing. It's like, look, what's his name? East. Mm-hmm. He beat me while other people were laughing. Okay, well, let's look into this guy. Okay, it looks like he has a problem with people of color. So we're going to use that as evidence against him. No, it's this anonymous group that was fishing for this stuff. And, tied into this is the Military Times story, which is no longer run by anybody in the military. White nationalism remains a problem for the military, poll suggests. It uses, I think, a statistic of 22% of people answering an anonymous poll on Military Times said they've experienced white nationalism.
Do you think that that's low or high? Because my first thought was that it's probably low.
It's bullshit. The quotes that I read in the story about not being promoted because of their color, because of white nationalism, things, bullshit. Sorry, Eric, you got a couple bleeps there. I spent a little time wearing green. It's just not a fact. People will search for anything when they get passed over for promotion. We'll look at anything besides a mirror. Sometimes you get passed over because you're a bad soldier. Not because you're black, not because you're Latino, not because you're white. Sometimes you're just a crappy soldier.
Well, I wasn't even getting it from that perspective. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying, but I'm saying like 22% I feel like is low, but not all of those people are decision-making people, and not all of those people translate what they think personally into like official decisions, but they might still have tendencies of not necessarily racism, but bias, like, and it goes both directions. It gets,
sure it does. But
my issue is with white nationalism. Like, it's not just, I know plenty of people who have problems with white people.
Oh, sure.
All white people.
And here's the thing. All that goes away when you're downrange. All of it. You don't not help the guy next to you because of the color of his skin. All that goes away when you go downrange. It's and obviously this covers the entire military, not just combat troops, and certainly not just guys on the teams. The camaraderie that's there doesn't know race. It just doesn't. I actually got into an EEOC complaint because I was promoted over somebody who was black. He had more time in grade. I had more time in actual specialty. Had more experience. I was a better soldier. But, as fat as I am now, he was fat. He was out of shape. But as soon as I was promoted above him, he made the phone call. And the Army is very responsive to it. Like, they stopped a training exercise to come and interview people to see if he'd been passed over because of his color.
Wow.
The man who pinned my rank on me was a black man. My captain who pinned the rank on me was a black guy. And he apparently was racist against black guys. But they took it serious enough that they stopped to do an investigation to make sure that that's not what happened. So that number, as far as the feelings, I don't know where it is on feelings. Plus, you do an anonymous poll. Those aren't necessarily actual service members that are answering the poll because there's no way of verifying that.
Right.
I didn't experience it. I've been out for a couple decades now. I never saw
wow.
it. Of course,
how old are you?
Huh?
How old are you? Decades?
I'm telling you.
Wow. I say that with a birthday coming up, so I mean I'll be crying next month, but for now I can make fun of you.
Are you gonna have a casket at your party?
Oh, shut up.
But no, I didn't. I know I say this as a white guy that I certainly didn't see any racism. Everything's good to me. Everything's fine.
I never had a problem.
I never had a... Banks are always nice to me. Cops are so polite.
Oh my gosh.
So I understand the optics of what I'm saying, but overall, the military takes it very, very, very seriously. And anybody who has an actual complaint is protected. You can't retaliate so much that they'll transfer you out if need be. I mean, you make a EEOC complaint, you're pretty well protected. I mean, that's the guys with the stars on their shoulder take that stuff very, very seriously.
Wow.
As for not doing one's duty, clerk says he won't enforce New York's driver's license law for illegal immigrants.
I want to go on the record before we start that I think the law for the licenses for them, for the illegals, is ridiculous. I don't know what New York is doing at any point anymore. They're like California. You hear a headline and you're like, oh, well, I figured that was coming. I mean,
no, you read it and you think it's clickbait. Like that.
Yeah.
That's just trying to get the MAGA crowd all stirred up. And then you look at it, it's like the Buffalo Times. You're like, well, hell, this is a real story. So, Ernie Erie, Man,
I was like,
I
who's
know.
Ernie?
I think it's been watching too much Sesame Street, huh? Erie Clark County County Clerk Michael Mickey Kearns took his first legal step to fight a new state law that allows immigrants in the country illegally to obtain a New York State driver's license.
So, obviously, New York does things differently from a Department of Motor Vehicles standpoint because our county clerks don't administer licenses. So I think that that's going to cause, I just want to say that to people, it's not the same setup. So he's a county clerk whose duties include signing off on these licenses. And he's saying that he's not going to do it. And he's asking a court to determine if his rights as a clerk apply or if he can be compelled to enforce a state law when he views the state law as a violation of federal law. And my favorite quote of the article was by him, or it's not even in the article, but it was in his letter to the county attorney where he says, "I anticipate being sued in either event. As a result, I intend to file a declaratory action again in the United States District Court, challenging the laws applied to the clerk, and I request your representation in this lawsuit and in supporting the Constitution and the laws of the United States." He's right. He's going to get sued no matter what. If he enforces this law, because it sounds like he leans Republican. It sounds like he does. If he's not going to enforce this law. So those people are going to be supporting him. If he enforces the law, they're going to sue him because they think it's a violation of federal law. And if he doesn't, he's going to get sued for not doing his duties.
I'm with you on the issuing license to illegal immigrants. You're here illegally. But
we don't get licenses in their countries.
Not generally.
Not if you're illegal.
Yeah, not if you're illegal. Yeah, most other countries aren't so welcoming. Man, you're right. New York and California keep trying to outdo themselves in absurdity. And it's super, super liberal politicians who are playing to their base. And when they say playing to their base, they're going to say, look at those evil people over on the other side. I'm here to protect you. Look at the laws I'm passing. I'm here to protect you. Mm-hmm. The guy's right. I mean, he's going to get sued. Another quote is, "As I understand it, this act requires that as an agent of the Department of Motor Vehicles, I will be compelled to give driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. I will not be granting driver's license to illegal immigrants." Look, it's preemptive.
So I think he brings up a couple good points. Like, this is not like Kim Davis, who wouldn't enforce the same-sex marriage licenses. That was on her, first of all, that was on her religious views. And second, her argument was she didn't believe in something, so she shouldn't have to do her job. This guy is bringing up a really good point about the fact that his job, clerks have to take an oath to uphold the Constitution. Yes, they have to enforce the laws, apply the laws, administer the law, whatever you're talking about with regard to his duties. But he swears to the Constitution, and this, for most of us who are reasonable, think that this gets muddy, at least with federal law, maybe not the Constitution, but at least with federal law. And so he's between a rock and a hard place. So I think that there's an interesting distinction there. Do you know if he's elected or if he's the clerk, like the administrative clerk for the county?
I don't know.
I'm assuming that's what he is, because if he's part of the Clerks Association, which is not, like, it's county clerks who, like in Georgia, the county clerks, we're not talking about the court clerks, we're talking about the clerks who work for the commissioners. And again, they have different government setup up there, but I'm assuming that he's not elected. So it brings up an interesting point. Is someone who is appointed or hired, are they expected to carry out duties at the direction of their bosses because even if it's in conflict with federal law, that's what we're asking people to do in Colorado with the weed.
Okay, he is a Democrat.
Interesting.
He previously represented the 142nd New York State Assembly, which is in South Buffalo. Let's see. He is elected. He's the incumbent.
That is so bizarre.
So this is a guy with a D after his name who still believes it's his duty to uphold the Constitution. Imagine that.
Well, props to him. But I just think that it brings up a lot of interesting points because, you know, I don't want to get in the abortion debate, but there's been all of that conversation about our district attorneys here not enforcing the law, and people are upset about it. And then there's people who say that it's a good thing that the district attorneys are doing that and they should have the discretion because they're elected. And this is, I mean, we're at a point and a fork in our country's history, I guess, where local elected officials take everything to heart and they're standing up. They're taking sides where I don't think you used to really see the trickle down at the local level be somebody who really was the one to take a stand.
I don't know. I think social media has changed the optics of that. There have always been people go, nope, not doing that. Not signing that warrant. Not doing it. Not in my court.
Well, this guy went to the news himself too. Like he wasted no time. I mean, it was signed last week and he announced this last week. It was all together. But the question is, and the courts are at some point going to have to answer, like, can an elected official choose not to enforce the law, or must they enforce the law? And if it's in conflict with federal law, what are their duties? I feel like that needs to be answered.
We'll answer it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's judicial precedent on it, you know?
No, if you give an oath to uphold the Constitution, that's number one. Now, I don't know what his oath of office is. I don't know if it's uphold the New York State Constitution. I don't know what it is, but if it's to uphold the Constitution, that's what you do. That's first and foremost. I don't care what your oath of office is, but I don't care if it's an enlistment oath. It's to support the Constitution. You know, obey the lawful orders of those officers appointed above you, which gives you an out if you're given an unlawful order. But anyway, in regards to this, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see this play out. We will certainly follow up on it because it will make news by when it is adjudicated.
Another side note question that I have that's unrelated to the clerk's actual duties. I mean, are illegals actively trying to obtain driver's license, like legal driver's licenses? Is this a thing? Like, do you think?
Yes, because you can't fly without it. It's hard to obtain auto insurance without it.
Well, I knew that. I mean, from that standpoint, I was like, that's kind of a double-edged sword because at least an illegal, like you hear all these times where accidents are, like you have no recourse because there was no insurance and that's just it. So, I mean, I guess that would be like the only silver lining, but.
What would be beautiful, and this is right up Trump's alley, is they start issuing the illegals driver's licenses with their addresses on there. The feds go in, subpoena those records, and go and arrest them and ship them home.
Well, that was my next thing was like, at what point they're giving the information, they're making themselves, they're no longer like undocumented if you're registering with the state. So at what point does the state the Fed step in and say, all right, thanks for the info. We'll take it from here, you know? And so that was my question about, is this common? Because I would imagine if the feds start doing it, it's going to become a lot less common.
Right. And that's the ultimate power move, is to step in, subpoena the records, and start shipping them home. So you can pass whatever law you want to. There's not an illegal in his right mind that would go and register and have himself thrown out of the country. But
Right.
we have, on the federal level, being illegal is sort of illegal. You can still file taxes. You can still pay taxes. The IRS doesn't ask questions. They just want to get paid. Right. Well, Jessica, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I feel like I've been talking like nonstop for more than an hour, and the mouse thing just really has me hyped up. So I don't have any closing thoughts this week. Do you?
All hopped up on mouse. Well, first, I'll say make sure you rate us on your whatever platform you use to listen to us. Go out and share us on social media. Interact with us on social media, especially if you have some off-the-wall stories that you want to hear us discuss, or say see us discuss. That'd be a hell of a trick.
Yes, and we want to hear your mouse stories.
Yes, your mouse stories. My only closing thought is, it is most likely, given the condition of my brother, that he died of an overdose. And people were surprised when discussing it that I still oppose the war on drugs, that no law saved his life. You make him super duper duper illegal, he still got a hold of them. We're gonna have a law. We're gonna have a war on opium, and we've got to take care of this crisis. Didn't save his life. He made his own decisions. And if that is when the tox screen comes back, if that's ultimately what took his life, it was his decision to put that in his body, and no law would have saved him, or no law could have saved him. So the war on drugs isn't about saving individuals and not about saving lives. It's about control and pushing government and having control over the people. On that cheery note, for Jessica Szilagyi, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.